May 22nd, 2020.
What began as an ordinary domestic flight turned into a catastrophic tragedy. Pakistan International Airlines Flight 8303, a journey from Lahore to Karachi, ended in heartbreak and devastation. How could a routine landing go so wrong? What caused this horrifying crash that claimed nearly all lives on board? Was it a technical failure, human error, or something else entirely? Join us as we unravel the haunting story of Flight 8303. The answers lie in the cockpit recordings, technical reports, and eyewitness accounts. What really happened that day? Let's dive in. Every airplane has a story. The Airbus A320-214 that operated Flight 8303 had served the skies for 15 years. It was no stranger to the rigors of commercial aviation, having logged over 47,000 flight hours since its first journey in August 2004. Initially leased to China Eastern Airlines, this aircraft joined Pakistan International Airlines, PIA, in 2014. Its engines were relatively new, installed in 2019, and the plane had undergone thorough maintenance checks in October 2019 and March 2020. But even machines with clean records can have secrets. From March to May 2020, this plane had been grounded during the global COVID-19 pandemic, along with countless others. After resuming service, it completed just 6 flights before embarking on its ill-fated journey. Despite its history and recent clearance for flight, something went terribly wrong. Could the period of inactivity or an unnoticed flaw have played a role? At 1:05 p.m. local time, Flight 8303 lifted off from Lahore's Allama Iqbal Airport. On board were 91 passengers, including families, students, and business travelers, along with 8 crew members. At the helm were Captain Sajjad Gul and First Officer Usman Azam, both experienced aviators. These were not rookie pilots, they had flown countless hours and were trusted to guide the aircraft safely to its destination, but aviation is unforgiving. Even seasoned professionals can make mistakes, especially under pressure. Did the pilot's actions seal the fate of Flight 8303? As the Airbus A320 approached Karachi's Jinnah International Airport, everything seemed routine until it wasn't. The pilots prepared for an instrument landing system, ILS, approach to runway 25L, a standard procedure. Then a critical issue arose. The landing gear refused to deploy. This wasn't just a minor glitch. Without landing gear, the plane couldn't touch down safely. But instead of aborting the approach and troubleshooting the problem, the pilots made a fateful decision. They pressed on. The aircraft descended toward the runway, its underbelly vulnerable. What followed was a chilling series of events that marked the beginning of the end. At 14:35, the plane made its first contact with the runway. The left engine scraped the tarmac, sending sparks flying. Just seconds later, the right engine hit the ground. Witnesses described the terrifying sight of the Airbus skimming along the runway before lifting off again in a desperate go-around attempt. The damage was already done. Both engines were critically compromised, leaking oil and fuel, yet the crew believed they could salvage the situation. They informed air traffic control and requested permission for another approach. But what they didn't know, or perhaps refused to admit, was that their aircraft was no longer capable of sustaining flight. The Airbus A320 climbed, struggling to gain altitude. The pilots communicated with air traffic control, requesting another chance to land, but the damage to the engines was catastrophic. Observers on the ground noticed the deployment of the ram air turbine, a last resort system designed to provide minimal power in emergencies. The pilots were running out of time, altitude, and options. At one point, they reported engine failure and declared a mayday.
Pakistan, 8303 approach.
Yes, sir.
Appears to be turning left.
We are proceeding directly, sir. We have lost engines.
Confirm you are going for a belly landing. Any runway available to land on 25.
Roger. Mayday. Mayday, Mayday, Pakistan 8303.
Pakistan 8303, roger. So both runways are available to land.
Their voices betrayed the mounting panic. The aircraft began to lose altitude rapidly, descending toward the densely populated neighborhood of Model Colony. Below, unsuspecting residents carried on with their day, unaware of the looming disaster. At 14:45, Flight 8303 plunged into Model Colony, just 360 meters short of the runway. The impact was devastating. Homes crumbled under the force of the crash. and a massive fire erupted, engulfing the wreckage. The scene was chaotic. Rescuers struggled to navigate the narrow streets and alleys to reach survivors. Out of 99 people on board, only 2 miraculously survived. The crash also claimed lives on the ground, turning a vibrant community into a scene of despair. For residents of Model Colony, the horror was unimaginable. Planes passing low overhead were a common sight, but none had ever fallen from the sky. In the aftermath, investigators faced a daunting task: piecing together the events that led to this tragedy. Initial findings pointed to a series of missteps. The pilots had ignored repeated warnings from air traffic control about their altitude. At 15 nautical miles from the airport, the plane was flying too high, 10,000 feet instead of 7,000 feet. At just 10 nautical miles, it was still at 7,000 feet instead of the recommended 3,000 feet. Air traffic controllers urged the pilots to descend, but their warnings were brushed aside. The captain assured them everything was under control.
Pakistan 8,303. You are passing an altitude of 2,000. Maintain 2,000. Pakistan 8,303. Mode Charlie showing 1,800 feet and descending.
Copied. We are now maintaining. Trying to maintain.
This overconfidence, combined with the failure to address the landing gear issue, proved fatal. When the engines scraped the runway during the first landing attempt, the damage sealed the plane's fate. Without sufficient thrust, the aircraft couldn't stay airborne during the go-around. Was this crash caused by human error, mechanical failure, or a combination of both? Investigators are still searching for definitive answers. The preliminary report suggests a grim possibility. The tragedy could have been avoided if the pilots had heeded warnings and followed proper procedures. But in aviation, even small mistakes can snowball into catastrophic outcomes. This crash has raised critical questions about pilot training, cockpit communication, and the protocols for handling emergencies. Lessons from Flight 8303 will undoubtedly shape the future of aviation safety. The story of Flight 8303 is one of heartbreak and lessons learned. It's a reminder of how quickly things can go wrong in the skies and the devastating consequences for those below. What do you think happened during those critical final moments? Could this disaster have been prevented? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining us as we uncovered the haunting details of Flight 8303. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories about aviation mysteries and disasters. Stay tuned for updates as investigators release new findings. Until next time, take care, and remember, every flight has a story.